Okay, so let me go ahead and kick off this session right about now. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all our participants. You're welcome to this session about the Q&A, question and answer with the WHO on COVID-19 vaccine introduction. We are happy to have you here today. As part of our grand rules for the engagement, when we start, kindly type something from into the chat window. I would really want you to participate actively by listening and asking your question in the chat room. You can see the chat room to the left of your screen. And we love to let you to speak and ask your question by clicking. For those are the people that are meant to be in the session. How does this be working? We will be having the open remarks. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, now we hear you again.
Open remark from the speaker, who is Ann. Ann will be sharing the open remark and telling us, then after that we'll go into the Q&A session. And we also have a volunteer from the organizing committee who is taking note of the session. And after the session, you can access the rapporteur note on the link that is shown and highlighted in green. And today's speaker from WHO is Dr. Ann Lindstrand, and she has been the head of the WHO implementation. And this is what she has for us to take notes. I'm sure she's going to be speaking to these 5 preparation areas and the various actions that we need to take. And on this note, I'm pleased to introduce to us and welcome to take over from where I'm stopping, Dr. Ann. And I'm pleased to welcome you once again to this very interactive session. Please drop your questions in the chat room. Over to you, Dr. Ann.
Excellent, Anu. Thank you so much. And I'm delighted to discuss and speak with all of you today. I see on the chat we have people from Sudan, Nigeria, Kenya, Seattle, Greece, India, and already hearing that some of you have been directly implementing the vaccines already starting from 16th of January, Dr. Mitra. So I'm Ann Lindstrand, I'm unit head of the EPI program at WHO UNICEF, but at the moment my life is totally absorbed by trying to support countries in equipping and whatever can be done to support the implementation of COVID-19 vaccine as the co-lead for COVAX on country readiness and delivery. So we are a big team working very closely with the WHO regions and partners in the support and implementation. And I just want to say, when I speak to my teams that are working in this endeavor, I mean, no one can be untouched from the importance of the COVID-19 vaccine implementation that is some countries are right in the middle of, most countries have ahead of them. And the increase of doses that will come with the manufacturing ramping up in the next couple of months, where we all need to be prepared, and how humble I can be to be part of trying to prepare the ground for an efficient use of the vaccines, so that no vaccine doses lay idle, but can be used and protect those most in need as soon as possibly can. I don't know if you also heard my Director General, so Tedros, I think it was during the EB in the last week, he was telling and talking about the COVID-19 vaccine as a catastrophic moral failure of inequity. There has been about, I think, 85 million doses being administered so far. only almost 2 months after the first regulatory approval of one of the first vaccines in one of the stringent regulatory authorities. Massive rollout in many, many countries already going on, but some countries still not having access to the vaccines the way at least the majority of those doses have been delivered so far in high-income countries. This is not what we want. So when it comes to the equity and how we should stop this pandemic, it really is about everyone having access and being able to reach and protect the priority risk groups first, and then go beyond so that we can go back to our normal lives. The work that we do from WHO together with UNICEF, with Gavi, with IFRC, with many different organizations is about preparing for the planning. And I only show this slide because I want you to have access to the resources. And I know many of you have probably been deeply involved in the planification already, the micro planning, the HR planning, the logistics of it. There is a support document called the National Deployment and Vaccination Plan, the NDVP, which will be obligatory to write and send in for the AMC 92 countries in COVAX. I worry about the operational costs. The vaccine parts is one thing, which is important, and the supply has been so much in focus. But to do that, we need vaccinations, not only vaccines. We need them to get into people, and having the operational cost and the implementation is crucial. So the asking, supporting wherever that is, domestic funding, World Bank funding, other pieces that could support the delivery cost will be important. Something that I hear many countries struggle with is the legal regulatory indemnification processes. So there are information about this and how to do this. And I know manufacturers will, in the COVAX facility, not accept sending any doses to countries which have not indemnified the manufacturers. The training, I'm sure you're already, ramping up to do this. And then I think the last one, the communication. So speaking about trusting these these new vaccines, which have proven very efficacious and safe in the clinical trials, but people need to understand how those clinical trials could have been developed in such a short time, and that they are safe and that they are efficacious, and trust the authorities in every country, the national immunization technical advisory groups, the governments, and actually coming forward and asking for these vaccines. As we are now, it's sure that the demand for the vaccines outweighs vastly the access to it, but in a short while, in the months to come, we will have more and more access around the world through different mechanisms, through the COVAX, through bilateral deals, through different regional deals. In the Afro region, there's a very interesting AU-supported access to vaccines as well, which is fantastic. We need all to roll up our sleeves and do what we can to try and get these vaccines as effectively and safely into people, to stop and for us to go back to our regular lives. So the way I wanted to structure this session is that I don't want to speak anything more. I really want us to have exchange here. So it's in a discussion. I would love to hear from Dr. Mitra on the implementation in India. I'd like to hear from any of you about questions you have or things you want to share of either struggles or successes in the implementation preparations and delivery in your countries at the moment. So Anu will be chairing this discussion, and over to you all. Questions, comments, Anu can give you access if you want to speak, or otherwise put in the chat. Over to you, Anu.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Han, for putting us through in terms of the preparation and the efforts that are in place in ensuring that countries have access to vaccines when they are ready, and the ensuring that there's issue of equity across board. I'm just going to go straight to the various questions that we have on the platform. Okay. So we have a question here from, let me see. Okay. I want to pick them according to the way they came in. Okay. So a question is coming from Christopher Ibanga, and is asking, how soon can a COVID-19 survivor take the vaccine? So imperative is asking that once a survivor has been infected, and is already out of the woods, how soon can the person take the vaccine?
So can you show me that question? I didn't really understand. Who was asking?
Christopher Ibanga from Nigeria. How soon can a COVID-19 survivor take the vaccine?
Okay, I see. Yes. So the SAGE recommendation, the Strategic Advisor Group of Immunization, does not say that those who have gone through an infection should not take the vaccine. It's actually not, I mean, the recommendation is to take the vaccine. And why is that so? Well, one thing is that we do not know the duration of protection post-infection. So even if you have survived, you've gone through the infection, you probably have, and we know that it sparks good immune response, but we do not know the duration of it. So the SAGE recommendations would be to still go forward and do your vaccinations. And probably with that, you will have a much longer protection from the COVID-19.
Okay, great. And thank you, Dr. Han, for that. The next question I will pose to you is coming from Sambo Istiaku, and is asking that issue of equity. Is actually this equity in terms of the distribution of the vaccine? How sure are we going to ensure that, all countries, no countries left behind, and ensuring that the global partners, the global players are accountable in ensuring that there's equity?
I just want to say that the COVAX facility was set up exactly to this purpose. And the good news is that through the COVAX facility, there has been 2 billion, about 2.3 billion doses of different vaccines being secured in deals in the COVAX facility. And those will be equally allocated towards the members that have been, I think, Mitra, if you can put on mute, Mitra.
Good afternoon, good evening. Yes. Greetings from India. That is, and one more thing I'd like to just share that it's today is our Republic Day. January. And hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Then yes. Just on 16th of January, we have launched the COVID vaccination. Yes, and till now there are just sporadic reporting of some reactions, but those all are very minor. No major serious reactions have yet been reported, and in my own institution.
Next will be is also talking about the issue about of the
Anu, I think.
How well are we ensuring?
Anu, I think. Yes, but
can you hear me, Dr. Han?
Dr. Mitra, she's also explaining the introduction in India. Can we hear her out? Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mitra.
On 16th of January, we have just introduced the COVID vaccine, and it is now the Covishield. Covishield has been now in use, and it is introduced in phased manner. In the first phase, we are giving this to the healthcare service providers. all the levels of the healthcare service providers. In my own institution, we have also started the session, and it was first session in my institution was on 25th, that is just this Monday. Tomorrow we have another session. The one thing is important, that vaccine hesitancy and also the refusal is huge. Though they are healthcare service providers, yeah, the vaccine hesitancy is so much because the people are very much bothered on the side effects. That is the what type of the EFI can occur or not. We have taken the photos of the people who have taken the vaccination, and that is we are using for the IEC. And in our official portal, in the institution official portal, especially the senior doctors, the departmental head of the Department of General Medicine, a professor of community medicine, they have taken, they are much senior people, and they have given that we are having no reaction, not even we are feeling feverish, and among the 136 people who have taken on the first day, no such event have been reported. So I think it is it should be taken, but one thing that we have to make people have to go for the advocacy, that is please come, and sometimes have to force them by some unusual way, that is if you don't come then you will miss the chance forever, like that kind of things, because some people are so unwilling out of fear and these factors. Hope the number will increase in future. That's all from me now.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sadhbha, and that was very helpful, sharing your experience from India with us in terms of ensuring that they know the processes. Okay, Dr. Han, any addition to what she has said?
No, I'm just fascinated, and thank you so much for sharing. I think what you highlighted on the communication and people's fears is something that we would all have to face and be really mindful about, so that all communication will be taking into consideration those rumors, those fears, and being able to transmit communication in a true scientific way, and in the voice that people can hear. I think this will be key to the full implementation and helping us to end this pandemic as well. So I think issues of community engagement, the communication, risk communication, and the demand will be hopefully a focus of every country implementing these vaccines. So thank you, Mitra, for sharing. It was very challenging, I can understand, having those voices of fear and mistrust in vaccines and how to deal with it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. And I think I really concur with you, but the issue of trust is very important, and communication is an effective means of actually addressing the hesitancy that we are experiencing, which have led to a lot of myths and misconceptions from various citizens across various countries. And we hope that we need to continue to engage proactively, and that is one of the essence of why we are having this conference, so we can share experiences and lessons and how we can continue to build capacity to be able to address some of these challenges. Now, someone is asking a question. That's Dr. Sindra is asking a question that with countries, looking at the purchasing power, the capability of countries to be able to purchase the various vaccine, will they be able to provide it for all the citizens? Can we have 100% coverage free of costs over the next few years? And if we are going to be having it, like how many years are we looking to ensure that all citizens are able to be vaccinated and be able to stay protected from this pandemic? Over to you, Dr. Han.
So I'm just writing in the chat. So the COVAX facility was set up to first be able to cover those most priority groups, so the 20%, which make up the healthcare workers in highest risk of transmission and attracting the infection, the elderly, and the medical risk groups. That usually, or an estimation, is 20% of the population. So the COVAX facility will supply that for free for the 92 countries most needing that, the low-income countries and some middle-income countries, so 92. But that's only up to 20%. The rest of it, there is an option in the COVAX facility to buy more doses. And I see some questions about herd immunity. 20% will not be enough to reach any herd immunity. It will be enough to protect the most vulnerable. And I understand the ambition of most other countries that wanting to go beyond the 20%. And there are different options. Either you can buy at a good price through the COVAX facility, which is negotiated prices through the facility. Either there are bilateral deals, and you can see that is happening from many places right now. And there is also World Bank funding and multilateral bank funding, so that you could actually fund those. There is one other option, and which, talking about equity, I see a lot of questions on equity here. There is also a document and a lot of pressure on high-income countries to share their doses, share the doses that they have made deals of, because many countries, Canada, EU, and others, have bought doses or made deals on doses many times beyond their needs, right? So have already focused deals. So I know our DG is in discussions with the EU, for example, about dose sharing. So please, you don't need all those doses, but others need them. Please, can we share them within the COVAX facility fairly and equitably across?
Thank you, Dr.
There is a lot of technical questions
Right.
in the chat. Anu, who do we? I'm trying to type and answer at the same time. Which one do you think we should take?
Okay. I think we should take the one that talks about the dosage by vial, considering the type of cold chain that we have, equipment in setup and that kind of. So, and I know somebody else asked the issue of maintaining the cold chain at facility level, especially in developing countries. Then someone is also asking, and maybe you could take those two together, talking about the cold chain and talking about the issue of the difference in terms of vaccine. Is there any difference between the vaccine coming from developed countries and the one coming to the developing countries? Developed countries and developing countries, are there differences in the two types of vaccines, either by the Moderna or Pfizer or whichever types of vaccine that it could be?
Yes. So I'm typing a lot of questions here. You need 2 doses for protection. 100-year-old grandma or grandpa can also be vaccinated. You need just to see that they don't have an infection right now. With the 2 vaccines that are coming out now, the Pfizer and Moderna, the new platform mRNA, there is one side effect that we do need to be mindful about, and that is the risk of anaphylactic reaction after the vaccination, which is more frequent, not very frequent, but more frequent than other vaccines. So 1 in 100,000 about that might have an anaphylactic reaction. So everywhere that these mRNA vaccines, so Pfizer and Moderna, will be given, there needs to be skilled people and the equipment to be able to treat an anaphylactic reaction right away. That is obligatory. That's really, really important. So you ask Dr. Ismail Gada about the protection of the vaccines, of the newly COVID vaccines. So for the mRNA vaccines, it seems to have very high efficacy. In the clinical trials, that it has proven to be effective against infection and with symptomatic infection of COVID-19 of about 94 or 95%. So extremely good vaccines. The AstraZeneca has been shown a little bit lower, but there are many advantages to the AstraZeneca vaccine when it comes to the cold chain requirements, because the mRNA vaccines, particularly Pfizer, needs an ultra cold chain treatment. So keeping it at -60 to -80, which is really, really difficult. Many countries will do struggle already with this within the European region, now implementing, for example. And so, but the AstraZeneca has a ordinary fridge, so Mitra can tell us about that as well. So it depends, the cold chain requirements is different for each of these vaccines. And I think one additional problem that countries will be facing is that many might even have to implement different vaccines at the same time, requiring different dosages, different administration, and different cold chain requirements. So it is a challenging scene right now for immunization programs. And then, yeah.
Okay. So Latash is asking the issue of the side effects after, with the government or company bearing the expensive towards the management of the side effect or the post immunization effects, if any, following the COVID-19 vaccine introduction for larger groups.
We still need to study this more. In the initial clinical trials, there were very good safety data coming out. You can have soreness, you can have fever, soreness in the arm, fever, headache, things like we can see in other vaccines. Post-licensing, that is when we saw the other effect, which was this increased risk of anaphylactic reactions, which is in both mRNA vaccines. There is also one signal which is we're not totally sure about still, but the Bell's palsy, so a facial paralysis, which is passing, so it's not stable, but still it may be, it's just a signal that we need to follow in both of those vaccines to see if it has any link to the vaccine itself. A little bit more in Moderna than in the Pfizer vaccine, actually.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I'll just move on to another question from Bennett Felix Regis, and she's asking, and I know another person have asked a question about access of the vaccines to children under 16, knowing that the Pfizer vaccine is now for persons above 16, so what is the plan to have vaccination for children below, for young people and children below 16? And also, is there any plan to integrate the COVID-19 vaccine in the EPI?
Yes, first of all, on the children, first of all, we all know that children usually do cope with the COVID-19 infection much better than the elderly. So are lower on the rate of risk of having severe consequences or deaths due to the COVID-19 vaccine. So deaths are rare, and severe disease is rare in children. So the vaccine trials actually did not include children in the first instance. And this is common rule. Many times this is what we start out with, the clinical trials in adults. And also tailoring towards the new target groups, the elderly and the medical risk groups. They were also included in the clinical trials. And Pfizer included from 16 and beyond, as you said, Anu. But trials will be initiated for vaccine efficacy and safety in children as well. So most of the manufacturer will go beyond that. But I do not think that it's in the immediate. I haven't heard any timelines when we'll get the first results. So for the moment, the licensing is from 16 years and above. Of course, if I'm a medical doctor, I'm a pediatrician, I know that the difference between a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old is not massive. If I would have a patient who had a severe medical condition that I think would be at high risk of COVID-19 vaccines, it would be on a off-label, offering of the vaccine to protect that person. And some doctors like me may want to take those decisions as well. However, Abiola, on the pregnant women, there is no data yet to support either that it's harmful or not in pregnant women. So SAGE, the strategic advisory group of experts, actually advised against including pregnant women in the vaccination introductions. With the caveat of saying, if a pregnant woman is at very high risk of a COVID-19 infection, being, for example, a frontline high transmission area of COVID-19 and being a health worker, or maybe having severe underlying vaccine medical conditions, there could be a one-on-one decision by the medical doctors to give the vaccine to a pregnant woman as well. Because you always have, as we do in medicine, you have to outweigh the risks and the benefits. And Anna, your question, sorry, I didn't answer your question. I think it should be part of the EPI program right away. I think EPI has moved beyond the infant immunization. It's a life course like program to think about immunization across the life course. And as I see, this is not, to me, and this is a vaccine introduction, not a vaccination campaign. It really is the experts in countries that are at the forefront of the delivery and the introduction of these vaccines.
Okay. Thank you. So that means we should look forward to having it as part of a normal routine immunization and vaccination that's available for people to obtain. So Gather Ismail is asking that, is there evidence about the protection of the vaccine against the newly discovered COVID-19 strains? And then I will also add to this. Okay, so I will also add to this that before the COVID-19, there's been various coronaviruses before now. So with these vaccines also be able to address those previous strains of coronavirus before we had the COVID-19 and these new strains. Yeah, thank you.
So we don't have all the data yet, but there is no reason to believe that the vaccines against COVID-19 now are not going to be effective against the new strains. So there are mutations that change, for example, the transmissibility of the strains. However, the vaccines are built up to be protective of a certain area of the spike protein inside a immune response based on the antigen on the surface of the virus. And so at the moment, there are no signs that it will be actually changing the effect of the vaccines. We still need to study it, but it seems unlikely. And also we have hopeful information from the companies that if that is the case, the new mRNA vaccines are kind of also possible to adapt the mRNA, which is in the vaccine, to new strains. So their technology is faster than regular vaccines in those two vaccines, maybe not in the other vaccines. So no reasons to believe that we don't have any effectiveness against the new strains.
Okay. So thank you. Anuradha is asking that after taking the first 2 doses or shots of the vaccine, how often do one have to take another shot? So is it it's 2 shots for life, or you need to come back again, like yellow fever, you need to come back every 10 years? Or so what is it like? Is it like the flu shot? And so the second part, B part of the question is that, what are the vaccine contradictions? Do we have any contradictions in the various vaccines that we have right now? Contradictions, conflicts, or can you take Pfizer now and go ahead and take Moderna, or take
okay.
are there any form of contradictions in taking the various doses? And then the first part was that, how frequently do we take it? Is it just to do doses for life, or you need to go back like the flu shots?
Yeah. So on the first one, on the duration of protection, as you know, the clinical trials just ended in December. And so we do not have the data on the duration of protection beyond the few months of observation that has been possible in the clinical trials. But all the manufacturers are trying to follow up all the participants in the clinical trials for us to understand if there is a need for another vaccination in a year, a booster, whatever. We don't know that yet. So far, the ones that have been developed need 2 doses, and the ones that have been licensed, there are vaccines on the horizon that has been tried out for only 1 dose. But for the Pfizer and the AstraZeneca, it's 2 doses, and Moderna as well. And the other Chinese and Russian vaccines as well. So 2 doses needed, we know that. Beyond that, we don't know. The duration of protection we'll have to study as it comes along. And the second question, Anu, what was that?
That can you mix up different vaccines together?
Yeah, no. Since there's no studies being done on the difference between mixing and matching the different vaccines, the recommendation so far is to stick to the same vaccine that you got in the first dose, also for the second dose. I can also see that there is questions about lactating women. And it's very important. I mean, breastfeeding is so crucial for health of children. And so far, there is no reason to believe that the vaccine could in any way harm the infant when it comes to breastfeeding, because it's not a live vaccine, which would be maybe transmissible or can give a disease. It's other platforms which are not live vaccines, and they are very quickly degraded and do not enter the cell nucleus either. So there are no real reasons to believe that the lactation it could be an obstacle. So this is in the clause of the precautions, and the recommendations from SAGE is saying there is no reason to believe this is harmful. However, we lack data, and we have asked manufacturer really to make testing in lactating women as well, so we can get confident data about this. But the recommendation is that if you are part of a risk group that is up for vaccination, a risk group meaning elderly, medical risk group, or healthcare worker, and you're lactating, you should take the vaccine, but you should not end and stop breastfeeding because of that, because breastfeeding is so important.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Francisca is asking, can a confirmed case take the vaccine?
You shouldn't take a vaccine while you are in an active phase of the infection itself. So, if you have a high fever, just like any other immunization, you postpone it until you have recovered then, and then you can take the vaccine. And that's what I was asking. And so even if you have gone through an infection of COVID-19, you could and should take the vaccine afterwards, but in a safe time, not during your infection.
Okay, so what is a safe time?
Well, I think it's when you've recovered from the acute phase. I would also maybe wait for two weeks, and then you can start to vaccinate. Okay,
and then Victor is asking that can someone that has taken the vaccine can basically test positive to COVID after taking the vaccine?
So this one, there are tests which doesn't detect antibodies against the vaccine, even if you are protected. So it might be, the test, the antibodies that comes in after the vaccine may not be the same as the ones that the tests have been tried out for. So we don't recommend that you would actually take a test for antibody and see that you have seroconverted after the vaccination. That would be too costly for countries to actually implement that. And knowing that 95% actually are protected against symptomatic infection, that I don't think that's needed.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. So, and Dr. Mitra is asking that if one has taken the influenza vaccine, how much time should she or he take the COVID-19 vaccine? And maybe you could lay that with other EPIs, other immunization like yellow fever and the other shots that we see.
Yeah, so at the moment, there has been no trials on co-administration with other vaccines. So the recommendation is actually not to take other vaccines at the same time. It's also to be able to disentangle what are the side effects. So the recommendation is you wait at least the 2 weeks after that you've finished the COVID-19, and then you can take other vaccines. And the time lag between the different doses, it depends on the different vaccines. So the Pfizer says 3 to 4 weeks, and the Moderna says 4 weeks. And so it's different with all the different vaccines. You'll have to see with the vaccines coming to your countries. In the slide I submitted here, there's a link to all our guidances and trainings materials. And we have developed an explainer for the Pfizer vaccine, and we will develop for all of the new vaccines that will be licensed under EUL or PQ in the WHO and Department of PQ.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Salamatu Begore is asking precisely about indicators. Now, what are the indicators that are being used to measure the effectiveness of this vaccine? Can you share some of these indicators?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, during the clinical trials, there were both deaths, severe disease, and symptomatic infection being measured. And so the big effectiveness studies, that means after the big rollout of vaccination, both the manufacturers, but many other countries will also be following up what's happening with these 3 indicators. So deaths due to COVID, severe disease and hospitalization, but also on the symptomatic. So we are eagerly looking at, for example, Israel, who have already vaccinated a large proportion of their population to see the effect of the pandemic. So observational studies as well on the surveillance of number of cases reported, etc. But there needs, of course, to be implementation of impact studies and effectiveness studies. And in the end of next month, I think, we are having out protocols of how to do that in a good way from WHO, which can be used for any country who want to implement an effectiveness study after their rollout of the vaccine.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hannah. I think we are coming to the end of the session. Just a quick last one. And someone is still asking the issue of adequacy of access to this vaccine. So, for example, like in Nigeria, it's expected to receive the vaccine very soon. And so what is the assurance that country will receive the second doses, when due? So our citizens are not left stranded, not having the vaccines when they are meant to have it. Also, and that goes back to the issue of the cold chain management, the storage. Like countries like we're not able to keep those vaccines for that 4 weeks, because it's not easy to keep them within the required temperatures and the rest. So what is the processes or the system in place to ensure that country receive the vaccines when they actually due, that we do not run out of this timing, and ensuring that people are not forced to take another type of vaccine, and which could lead to other adverse effects?
Yeah, Anu, this is a really tricky question, and it's being discussed very much now. You can, you understand the complexity of the logistics around this. It's massive. So UNICEF Supply Division is handling the shipments of all the vaccines after they have been allocated in the COVAX facility. And of course, when it comes to the final allocation, the calculation is that, and the linking between the allocation and the shipment is covering, so that it's sure that there will be a full regimen of 2 doses coming to the countries. So when you get allocated, you should get allocated for the 2 doses, and then there's a shipment plan with UNICEF, which is rolled out steadily. And I know they're working day and night to secure that that is happening as well.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Ann Lindstrand, and I think it has been a very wonderful time with you, and we have a lot of participants saying thank you to you for the informative and educative session that we have with you. We wish we can actually keep you longer, but we know that we may have other sessions to jump on to right now. So Dr. Ann, Dr. Mitra, and Anne and Tiffany, we say thank you. And the participants, sorry, we cannot go beyond this. This is time for networking, and we encourage you to please go to the networking session and meet with other people. Dr. Hannah, are you going to be in the networking session?
Yes, I will.
And so please go ahead. Okay.
And I just wanted to say good luck to all of us. I know you have a vast experience, and this is all on our. We all have a role to play in this to stop the pandemic, and I know you're deeply involved. We all need to work on this jointly. Thank you.
Jointly. Thank you. Jointly and together, we actually shall win the war. Thank you, Dr. Hannah. Thank you, everyone. See you in the networking section.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.